podcast, Carecast. I can't believe we're here. I just want to take a moment to introduce our podcast. It's a podcast for caregivers that are taking care of vulnerable children. Foster, kinship, adoption. Welcome to Carecast. Encouragement, real talk, and lasting hope. This is a space to be encouraged, inspired, and reminded that you are never alone. Each week, we bring real stories from real people, caregivers, experts, and those that have walked this journey firsthand. Because when we hold their stories with compassion, courage, and community, we all grow stronger. My name is Nanci Weinstein, and I'll be your host, but I will never be alone. Today, I would like to introduce you to my partner in care.
Well done.
Meleilani.
Oh, my word. Nanci Weinstein.
Barnes. That's her last name.
Let's start with my name.
Okay, let's go.
We've been friends for quite some time.
Yes.
It's Meleilani.
Oh.
But that's nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, too. But I understand the confusion. Let's just start with beautiful yet complicated name. Meleilani, of course, everybody always goes, are you Hawaiian, right? What island in the Hawaiian Islands, I just said. What island are you from in Hawaii? And I always had to say, Michigan. That is where I grew up.
It's a beautiful island.
Anyways, just getting back to my name, Meleilani is how it was pronounced growing up in the Midwest. Leilani means heavenly flower. And my parents' initial, so Filipino, okay? M starts with my dad's initials, and then my mom's name was Eleanor, right? So that's how I got my name. Isn't it crazy? Did we?
I don't think I've ever known all that history.
Again.
I know. I didn't know all that history, but I love it. I love it. It's a beautiful name, but I know you as just Lanny.
Yes, thank you. Just call me Lanny. Sometimes I go Lanny like Danny.
And you need to do that because a lot of people will say Lonnie. Okay.
It's okay.
We need to get back to
something.
Okay.
Welcome to the Carecast podcast.
And so we have done this a lot around many tables in, public and private, talking about foster care, talking about adoption, talking about kinship care. And we're here today to get your story, the heart behind the help, so to speak. And so how did you find foster care? What brought you to I think I know, but not everybody knows. And I don't think I really know all the story, Lanny. I really don't think I do.
Wow. We're going to just dive into this. This is what we do here at Carecast.
Welcome to the deep end.
Welcome to the deep end. Well, let's just start with my husband and I. We were married in 2002. And like many families, we wanted to start a family, and we were unable to get pregnant. So dealing with infertility for many years, I don't mind sharing that because God has brought us to the other side, but I remember it so well. It was such a difficult time. It seemed like everybody was getting pregnant around you, and you go to church, and all of a sudden somebody's like, I'm pregnant again, and you want to celebrate with your friends, but there's part of you that you're like, oh man, that's something that I'm hoping for. And what happened was I just started hearing a little bit more about foster care, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to dive in and look online and do some research. And I don't want to say I tricked my husband. That's the incorrect word. But it was going to be our 9-year anniversary, and I had done some research about foster care, and I was learning about the numbers in San Diego, and I thought, it's just an information session, right? It's just an information session. Let's go together and check it out. And so before we went out to dinner, I just said, let's go check out this information session that was that night right before we went to dinner. So strategic, right?
Now, had you ever discussed foster?
You know what? Not just like, let's just jump in. This is going back to a time where I just said, I remember telling Matt, my husband, just saying, can we just check this out? And I remember him just genuinely being concerned. Okay, so let me get this straight. We've been trying to get pregnant. We can't get pregnant. And now you want to foster a child and then reunify them. You think that's going to be better on your heart, basically. And I appreciated that. He was looking out for all the emotional expectations that come with wanting to have a family of your own. And of course, let me go back. Yes, I did tell him, hey, can we just check this out? And of course, he said yes. We heard about the need. And I just remember us leaving, heading to dinner, and he just said, you know what, we can do something about the foster care crisis in San Diego, one child at a time. Mm. And fast forward, we went through the trainings, and it feels like such a long time ago to kind of reflect to back then to where we are now.
Because how many years has it been since?
Oh my gosh!
First?
Since our first placement, that was in 2011.
Wow, yeah, it's been some time,
right?
And we've been friends not quite that long, but maybe a few years shorter than that for a long time.
Yeah. And here we are on a podcast.
And here we are doing a podcast.
Because that's what the Lord does. He opens doors and we are obedient. We go, is this really our next step? Maybe somebody will listen. Maybe somebody won't.
I think they will.
But so we got to still get used to this. Sorry, Barbara and Alex. We're still getting used to this whole podcast world that you guys live in over here. But anyway, anyways, as I'm moving forward, I'd like to share a little bit about maybe our first placement we got, right? He was a 3-month-old little boy. It's a failure to thrive case, which basically meant he could not gain weight at home. Mm-hmm. And without getting into the details about that case and that beautiful family that we still get to be a part of, we took him home. And I just remember going to the hospital, right? After you go through all the foster care classes and what to expect, you get that call from that social worker. Do you remember the first time you got that call? And you're like, oh, okay, you need us to go to the hospital and be there in an hour, right? So here, Matt and I are a couple that have been trying to have a baby for years, and now they call us, and in an hour, we're going to the hospital to go pick him up. And I just remember when we saw this beautiful, I don't want to start crying, every time. I just remember picking this beautiful baby up, right? And then us standing outside of that elevator and Matt looking at me and going, they're going to send us home with this beautiful baby right now. We've never been parents before. But what I loved about stepping into foster care was that after years of trying to have a baby, I was like, I can do something with this. Right? I can do something with this ache and this heart, and there's a child that needs us to care for him, even if it's for a short time, right?
And the word I keep hearing is care. The child needs care, and that's where we came up with this name for our podcast, CareCast.
Yeah,
because that's really where it all started. Was that we knew there were children that were in need of care, and we could care, right? Yeah. Like that's something we could do, and that's even though you. Obviously, with infertility, there is sorrow, right? And there is, and I did not struggle with that, so I don't pretend to know everything, but I know that my friends have walked through that. But you turned that pain and what you wanted, a road that you wanted to be, and you said, okay, but I still have all the care in my heart. I still could do that. I still could give that. Who needs that? And,
right.
And then, you found children that needed it.
Right. And pain in your purpose, right? Sometimes it's hard. I'm not here on our first time podcast saying, oh, that was so easy. Just even reflecting back at it brings up a lot of different emotions. But what I could say from what I learned from that first time of caring for a child, this beautiful baby boy lived in our house. And it was interesting, as I mentioned, it was a failure to thrive case. So he couldn't gain weight for some reason at home. And I always love to just joke that good thing I'm Filipino because we're just feeding people over here, right? And so we had to set the alarm every 3 hours to wake him up and feed him because he did not learn to cry and ask to be fed, right? And that was just because of the current environment in his home. What I do love to share about that case is that he lived with us for about a year. And it was beautiful to be part of seeing his mother do what she needed to do to get him back. I mean, I even remember when she called me and said, hey, they said that he can stay, he can be placed forever at our home now. And I remember her thinking, but I feel so bad. I know you love him, of course. And I go, no, you've done the work. I'm so proud of you. And I'm always happy to say that I'm still part of their lives, right?
And
he's 14 now. Can you believe that?
It's incredible. And that's one of the things I want to be very clear about this podcast is that we give honor and to the biological families.
Yes.
To those that stepped into the journey as foster families, to those that are stepping into the journey as adoptive families. And we recognize that there is pain and loss in these stories. And we respect and honor all of those pieces and all of those people. And it was never, not to go into my story because we'll do that another time. But I know that when we brought children into our home, my goal was rooting for the parents that they could make the changes they needed.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't happen, sadly. Right. But in this situation, it did. And you can be both exceptionally excited for a child to return to a family and also personally heartbroken because you do love them.
Yeah. You can hold all those emotions during that time. I remember saying foster care is so bittersweet, right? You're rooting for a birth mom to be able to, I always remember, talk about, now we're really reflecting. I remember holding this beautiful baby boy during this time and also feeling a lot of empathy for mom. Like I get to have these moments at night, right? Feeding him through the night. And I knew she loved him. She was just in a situation that she needed some help and she was working hard to get it.
Yeah.
Right. But I remember thinking that, you know what, I have this year with him. And
and you didn't know you had a year.
I didn't know that yet.
You did.
You never know.
Reflecting back, you had a year.
Yeah.
But that's part of the journey of foster care is we never know. Is it 2 minutes, 2 days, 2 months, 2 years? We don't know how long we'll have with the child, but we know while they're in our care, we will stand and be their voice and do the best we can for them. But so tell me about when you did have to reunify the little guy. Tell me about your emotions because that probably was very difficult. I know, but not everybody knows. Not all the listeners know. So tell us about what that felt like.
Carecast, we go deep with our emotions right away. Right? Of course, it was hard. I get choked up thinking about it, right? That's just part of your heart that you'll always hold. I always say that first placement, that first little kiddo, that first child that was in our home, he will always hold a special place in my heart. Nobody else can take that, right? But I think, like what we were just saying earlier, I could be happy for birth mom because I love seeing him with her. I know how much she loves him. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt when you are not the one feeding them, you're not the one caring for them. And I just, the more families that I'm around, adoptive families, people that are fostering, I just found that sometimes when I meet somebody in the foster care community and we talk about that first placement, we're always like, we're already connected. Ugh, you know how that feels. And that was interesting because we were fostering with an agency called Angels Foster Family Network, right? Beautiful agency. And what I loved is they really, really focused on, hey, you know what, supporting the birth families and being that support to them. But I remember, we had a great caseworker at the time. And before he reunified, I remember just saying, okay, I love the support that you give me. I just need to talk to a foster mom that reunified a child and lived to tell about it, because the thought of packing up his stuff tonight and he's going to be leaving tomorrow was breaking. It was heartbreaking.
Because what some may not know is that can happen within 24 hours. It can be one day the child is in your home and has been in your home for a number of months or a year or longer, and you get the phone call that, court is happening. And most likely at court, the child will be placed back with their biological family member, whether it is their biological parent or a a kinship situation. Kinship meaning any other family member.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that call, and like you said, there are times, if we're being honest, where you're not sure if it's the best situation just because of things that you might know that's going on in the story. In this situation, you knew you were cheering on mom, and mom had made the work. She had done the work. But I know what it is like to, because it's not normal, right? It's not a normal experience for a parent to pack up every item that your child has ever owned during the time they've been with you, put it in a bin, and give that child and all of their belongings to someone else. That's not a typical parent's experience, but it's what we've done.
Hey, Nanci, I just have to say, earlier when we sat down here, we're like, how did we get here? And can we just reflect really quick? And without getting into the story, of course, your story yet, but maybe we can talk a little bit about when we first met.
Sure.
Because at the time, after my husband and I, we fostered for a few years, and then I ended up working at the agency as their recruitment and retention specialist, which basically meant I got to talk about foster care, what it meant to step in this space, and also be a support not only to the families that we're fostering, the kids, but the social workers that we were working with at the agency as well. But I remember meeting you, and I love when you tell that story.
Well, she invited me to a support group, but I didn't have a foster child yet, or a child that I was in my care. Like, I mean, I had 2 daughters, biological daughters, but I had not started down the road of the journey. I had done training and all that, but I had not had a child placed in my care yet. And so I was like, well, Lanny, why would I come before a baby? And she was like, girl, you need to get yourself to this meeting. You need to meet us and hang out with us because you're going to need us, right? You're going to need us. So you might as well get to know us before you actually are in your crisis moments. And we don't mean that in a bad way. Fostering, we're going to be real on this podcast. We're not going to sugarcoat things. We're not going to make it seem all perfect, rainbows and such. It is both the most difficult thing my family has walked through, foster care, and caring for children that are in the foster system. But also, if you had any one of my family members sitting here, my 2 daughters, my husband, and I believe even my son, who's 9, who we ultimately adopted, and you'll hear that later. But I think we all would say the same thing, that it was really the greatest thing that our family ever did together.
Well, and not only that, I mean, I've been a believer my whole life, and I felt that stepping into foster care, God was like, oh, you really trust me? Here you go, right? And I always like to encourage people to take their next step, whatever that is, because I don't know what your story is. I don't know what your next step is, right? But when a door is open, especially after trying to have a family of our own for many years, and I always say we were in the waiting room for a long time, and so when that door opened and God said, hey, I need you to step into this, and I need you to trust me with all the unknowns that go with foster care, I surrendered it, right? And year after year, it's not just about foster care. My hope is that this podcast is for people to just grow deeper in their faith in some way, right? Because my faith is personal to me. I love to share about the relationship I have with the Lord, just because He's changed my life in so many ways. He's blessed our family, but He's walked with me through some very, very difficult times in the last so many years, right? Because I'm that many years old. No, but I know that we were just talking about that, how I said, hey, girl, you're going to need us, right? And it all comes back down to a community. What I love to share even about foster care is that 50% of families that are fostering, they quit after their first placement, right? And that's why it's so important that the organization we get to be part of, Restoration 225, that we really believe that every child deserves a caring community, right? We love hearing the stories. I love when we get to go to different churches, or if I'm at a coffee shop and somebody shares and says, hey, you know what? I grew up through the foster care system. I'd love to share my story. Or I fostered for years, or we used to foster when the kids were younger. I love being part of the foster care community here in San Diego.
And that's our goal, really, is you're not going to only hear our beautiful voices. She sings too, ladies and gentlemen. She sings too. Just you wait. But we also are going to bring in guests and experts and those that have been really dedicating their lives to foster care, kinship care, and adoption in some way. And the why behind this podcast, honestly, is to reach those who may otherwise not have a community. We did. We were fortunate where we could go and we could sit in someone's home and chit chat and talk about the ups, the downs, and everything in between. But I recognize that that's not always possible, right? Sometimes you have more than one kiddo you're taking care of, and you have, an older one and a younger one, and they all are here, there, and everywhere. And so you just can't. You can't dedicate 2 hours a week to just sitting and talking, but you can fold your laundry and listen to a podcast.
Yes, you can.
That you can do.
Yes, you can. You can drive and take that commute to LA or Palm Springs and go, you know what? I've been waiting for this podcast. I'm going to listen to it on this drive.
That's right.
So I love that you said that, because it's hard. It's really hard, especially even though people go, hey, I have this foster group, support group that we could do. Just oftentimes finding childcare, and then the trauma that the kids have gone through, and then going, oh, you know what? Will they be able to, is it going to go smoothly so that I can concentrate on being part of that group? And so we hope that this is a space that you'll be able to reach out to us, feel connected, because it's hard. And that's our encouraging words for today.
But it is.
It is hard.
It is hard. And I mean, you've cried on my shoulder. I cried on your shoulder. And we've had others crying on our shoulders at different times. And that doesn't mean that we wouldn't do it again or that we wouldn't encourage someone to do it. It just means that we're honest, right? Yeah. And when someone has ever asked me about foster care, I'm always very honest that it is very difficult. Yeah. But it is, as with most things in life, if something is difficult and it's a challenge, it is also extremely worth it.
Yeah.
When things are super easy in life, those aren't the things you look back on and say, gosh, I'm so glad I went and did that, like super easy. Right. So, and I don't ever want to present ourselves as we feel that we have saved any child. We have simply stepped into their stories.
Love that.
And as we would hope someone would step into our own, and I have a few people who did, and we'll talk about that in the next episode. Stay tuned, ladies and gents.
I love how we're getting comfortable now. I can see it. I can see it on Nanci's face. She's like, I like this microphone. And I'm going, no. Well, and I need to reflect on something else. Okay, so I was just looking at my old Instagram when we first started, right? And I have some pictures of you and I going, oh, look at us. I'm with my friend. We're both fostering and we have no idea what's going on. And I move, but we're going to support each other and we're going to be around these, we call them the super mamas. Remember when we first started, I just go, I need to lean.
Shout out to them. Because I still connect with them. They're still wonderful women. And yeah.
I learned so much from just their stories, right? And then I remember after we both adopted, we're like, hey, what else can we do when it comes to foster care, right? And it's interesting because now here at Restoration 225, another door was open, right? R225 is here to engage and equip local churches.
Tell us about it. Tell it. So start. Restoration, you got to pause because you're talking like everybody knows. And not everybody knows.
That's
okay.
So true.
Restoration 225.
Yes.
How did it find you?
Okay.
And where are we today?
Okay, Restoration 225. As I mentioned earlier, I was working at an agency called Angels Foster Family Network. And this beautiful woman, Lisa Christie, she walks in and she says, hey, she goes, we are here. We're a new nonprofit. We're here to mobilize the local church to do something for foster care and help and support. And I said, great. I've been waiting for you guys. And like I said, I've been a believer for a long time. And I was just really honest. I said, sometimes churches say they're going to do something and they don't follow through, and I can say that, but there are many churches, they're doing so much already,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I was excited. I love bringing people together, right? And doing something. And so I wanted to learn more about that. And what I can share about that is initially I tested them. I go, hey, guess what? We have a holiday event this Christmas. This is what's needed for the kids this age, and this is what's needed for the kids that are older. And they showed up, and they even doubled it at the time, right? And I go, oh my gosh, who are these people, right? And this is what I love is that R225, where it's grown now, we're going into our 6th year. It's about relationships. We've always wanted to be an organization that is relational versus transactional. And it started with that relationship with Lisa, just her coming in and going, you know what? She was given this opportunity by our founders, Jen and Jerry Hall, who just said they want to see the church do something and step into the story for these kids, vulnerable kids and families.
And to speak to that, we recognize that it's difficult a lot for churches to step in prior to Restoration 225 and some other organizations that do really great work because the stories are protected. These are children. And so you can't just knock on a door and say, hey, which child needs help and send me to their house. Like that's not going to happen. So,
Right.
But through Restoration 225 and the dream that Jen and Jerry had, we have been able to step into those stories and really be the connector. So keep going. Tell us more.
That.
Tell us more.
I love that. We get to be the bridge, right? There are agencies that are working with children and families, and they are looking for community help.
Mm-hmm.
And there are churches willing to help, but they don't even know where to start. And guess what? That's why we exist. We are here to connect them. I'll give you an example. A child needs to be placed into foster care, right? But in order for them to take placement, they need a car seat and a bed right away. So the parents that are fostering, they go, we just got that call, but we are not ready. Guess what? The church volunteers and the response teams that we've trained, they're ready to answer them and deliver those items. I've seen it time and time again. The church wants to help. I often say, pastors, just give me that one person at your church or that couple that has a heart for vulnerable kids. Who's the auntie? Who's the grandma in your church that always knows what's happening with all the kids in the neighborhood? I want to partner up with them. And so it's almost like we're building this huge support group, this huge small group. Mm-hmm. Does that contradict itself? Huge small group throughout the county of San Diego to work together. And we always believe that we're better together. And now, like I said, we're in our 6th year, and we have worked with over 70 churches. We have 45 that are engaged with us, which means they are doing something annually, monthly for vulnerable kids. And we have 20 plus that are just going, what else can we do? They're on, we can get into that a little bit later, but they're utilizing this software platform called Care Portal. And we get to be the implementing partner here in San Diego that gets to utilize that. And, but we can definitely talk about that a little bit more. But that's really not only the heart behind what we get to do. It's the reason why we wanted to start this CareCast, right? We're always looking for the helpers. Oh. And we really believe that we're better together, and we're seeing it happen.
100%. And the churches are so ready and willing and partnering with each other. I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of the job that I have as church engagement is that churches that used to stay in their box, and no fault of their own, those are the people they knew, those are the people they served with. I'm able to say, oh, there's another church in your area, or even if they're not in your area, they're willing to help you, whether finance the fund, pay for the item if you're willing to deliver, or vice versa. Hey, we're willing to deliver. Can you help us fund? So or it's a big request, and then they need multiple items, and so then 2 churches or 3 churches work together to make the burden a little bit less on one. So we love that work. We love seeing that, and I love being a part of the bridge. I remember when you sat with me and you said, "What do you think? What do you think about coming on to Restoration 225?" And I was like, "And what do you think about Care Portal?" And I was like, "Wow,
I know.
I can't believe this. That Care Portal has." It was such an amazing thing. I couldn't believe it didn't already exist.
Right. And I mean, there's so much, we just started out, and look at us, Barbara and Alex. You said, be aware of the time. Look how
I know.
And we're talking. It's surprise. It's like cafecito, Barbara's favorite thing, cafecito right here. Now we're easing in. I love that we get to do this. I'm hoping that on the other side of this podcast, somebody's listening to this and they're like, you know what? They are our people. I want to hang out with them.
Come on in. we got some extra mics. It'll be all right. No, truly, that's what my prayer for this is, that it will reach the ears and the hearts and the minds and the households that need to hear it, that need the encouragement, that need she gets it or he gets it. Because we're going to talk about some topics that are difficult, that are, because it's not all easy. What we have walked through as foster parent, what we've walked through in our jobs at Restoration 225 alongside the kinship families. And we are not afraid of the hard, and we acknowledge it, and we continue to serve because, that is what we're called to do, right?
Hey, could you share that's my favorite story right now about that boy that needed that bed, right? I love that story.
It's humbling, but it's also motivating. And that's the beauty of the story. And so just very quickly, we were on a delivery, right? I actually wasn't there, but those that represent us were there, and they came back and told us this story. But there was a teenage boy, and I don't know exactly how old he was. I think somewhere in the range of 14. Mm-hmm. And the church responder who had been a part of the delivery came back and told me the story, which was they delivered the bed. So it's a bed and a mattress, and the bedding, and they set everything up. And he got in the bed and never got out the rest of the whole time they were there. They were setting up a dresser and some couple of other things. But he was like, I've never had my own bed.
Right.
And of course we know that, right? There are children out there that, don't have their own bed. But to see it and experience it and to see the gratitude is overwhelming. And it's a reminder of doing something that on our side doesn't take that much. In fact, this was just a delivery. When I say just, like the items were paid for or donated. So really it was the church members just saying, let's get a truck and let's deliver this to the family. And it allowed him to stay with his grandparent, who had cared for him most of his life. And it created a permanency so he didn't have to leave. But the beauty for me is that it was something simple as a mattress and a bed that he felt was going to change his life. And we know that sleep is so important, right? So now he's not sleeping on a couch or on the floor. And that he was so grateful and overwhelmed and he kept saying, I've heard of a church, but I didn't know a church would answer this.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, ouch. Right.
And so, and then our next hope is obviously that they continue to be partners with the family and help in other ways. But, and that does happen. That happens a lot with our responders. They continue and have an ongoing relationship with the family when the family is open to it. And there are so many other stories that we'll share on this podcast, and maybe we'll have to have a little section of like the heart behind the help stories or something, because there are so many encouraging stories, because there's a lot of hard here. But then, like we always say, there's a lot of heart too.
I love that. And, we'll do an episode when we're going to talk about the 3 ways to care, right? 3 ways to care. And let's get Emily Tupta to come share about that sometime.
Perfect.
Let's do that. But When I'm thinking about Restoration 225 and where it started, I mean, when we started, we literally were cold. My first day of work was January 7, 2020. So sometimes people will go,
Good year.
people will go, oh, how did the pandemic affect you guys? Well, we were birthed out of it. When a lot of the church doors had to be closed or were closing, we were there listening to some of the needs. The agency that we first partnered with was the YMCA kinship program, and they were caring for relative caregivers that were stepping into that space of full-time caregivers, keeping. Yeah, you want to talk? Let's talk about that.
Define kinship. Some may not know.
No, actually, you define kinship. You do it so great. I love it when we talk about that because it is really that prevention space.
Right. So kinship is when an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, older brother, older sister, anybody who is kin to the child steps into their story or already has been in their story and would be a good place for them to stay. And so they are evaluated, and then the child is placed with them instead of going into traditional, what we know as foster care. And so when that is possible, and it's not always possible, but if it's possible, then the grandma, I always say grandma because that's mostly who we talk to, mostly who's stepping into the story. And then they take in their grandchild and care for them. The difficult part of it, obviously, they may not have been totally prepared. They didn't know that the child was going to come stay with them or children. And so they need support and help to be able to do that.
You know what? That just reminds me of another story. This is that first God story where he really opened my eyes of this space that we're in with Restoration 225. We got a call, and just like we were talking about, a kinship grandmother stepping into that role of full-time caregiver, and she was taking in 3 of her grandchildren. Well, in order to take placement, they need beds, they need car seats, they need clothes, maybe grocery gift cards, and they cannot take placement without those items, right? And so I remember talking to a kinship grandmother during that time, and going back to 2020 and 2021, when I would spend time talking to these grandparents, I would be on the phone probably for about 45 minutes. I remember turning to the team at the time going, okay, I can only talk to 3 grandmothers a day. My heart is breaking hearing the stories. They're feeling isolated, but they're stepping into that space, keeping their grandkids from entering foster care. But they don't necessarily have the support right away.
Right.
Let alone the beds and the car seats and the bedding and all those different things, all the tangible items that are needed. And I remember talking to this grandmother, and later on, I go, you know what? I know there's a church that's dropping off all these, there's foods. I just said foods. There is foods there. Anyway, they have a food pantry. So we picked up these boxes of food, and I said, you know what, let's drop this food off at Grandma's house. And I remember knocking on the door and just stepping back and going, hey, Grandma, remember me? I talked to you last week, and I'll never forget her face. She'd cracked the door open, and she looked over and she goes, you didn't forget me. She's like, I have felt forgotten for so long. And I thought, oh my gosh. And I'm looking around, and I see at her house at the front door, there's we're going to be honest, there's a broken window. There's items in the front that don't look safe for the kids, just trash, just because there's so much to care for, right? And I'm thinking to myself, as foster parents, we had to lock up the knives in order to take an infant, right? And I go, and now you're going, hey, you know what? Can you take these kids in? And I understand that, grandparents, they love them, but we're here at R225 to really just go, what can we do to help that caregiver?
Yep.
Right? And help the children that are being placed there. And that always sticks with me. That was the first time when I go, okay, here's just one of many stories, Lord, that you're going to show me, and so that we can continue to do the work that we're doing.
100%, because the grandparents and the caregivers that are stepping into these stories, they want to. Their heart typically the ones we've met, they want to, but they're not really sure how they're going to do it. And they're not really sure the resources that they might have. And they don't know maybe how to navigate those resources. And so a part of our podcast and our CareCast is to encourage those, because really if we even back up a little bit, we always thought we were going to be here to, not on the podcast, but in life, to encourage those to foster. We thought we always needed them to foster, get into fostering. And what we realized pretty early on was that even though we were advocating to grow up more foster parents, people weren't ready to jump in that deep water. Mm-hmm. So we had to take steps back. And so that's where we are with Restoration 225, with Care Portal, the online platform that we use to get the word out, to let churches, responders know, hey, this is a grandma in your area or a caregiver, and this is what they might need. And then you show up with that tangible item, but there may be other ways you can walk with them in their story and help. And it could be something as simple as, they have a doctor's appointment, but they're not really sure how to navigate which specialist they need to go to for whatever. And maybe you can sit with them and help them navigate that.
Yeah.
It's not always a financial commitment, or purchasing something. It's really sometimes just being a friend, and maybe being able to help them navigate that. Now, I will tell you, this is our first podcast, and I am looking at that red number.
Oh, my word.
So I am learning that we are coming to the end of this podcast, and I definitely don't want to mess that up. And I'm like, there's something I'm supposed to say at the end of this podcast.
Let's pull it up, Nanci.
Okay, so we're doing it. My outro. Where is my outro? Here it is, guys. This is so rough, but this is our first podcast. Forgive us, but we're going to get better as we go on. But honestly, we just don't want to leave without mentioning how you can find us, how you can get involved. So at Restoration 225, that's for all socials, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, at Restoration 225. If you want to go to our website, you can go to restoration225.org. And then each week we will have a new CareCast.
I love that.
Yeah. And we'll have different people on. It won't just be our two faces, although I know that's who you really came to see. But
we got to get used to this. You can hear
I know. I keep slapping and I know. We're learning, guys. We're learning. But should I end with our tagline?
I love it.
Okay.
Do it.
Go care for one today. And what does that mean? Go care for one today.
Just do something.
Right.
And that's the beauty of this. We're not asking everybody to become foster parents, even though they're always going to be needed, right? But go care for somebody today. Go care for one.
And whatever that looks like, if that's just giving a smile to someone at the grocery store, if that's stopping a mom who you see is doing a really great job, or a dad who's doing a really great job with their kids, and you say, I see you, just care for one today. Thanks for joining us.